In this episode, you'll want to watch until the end as Hurricane Lee makes a splash here on Oasis of the Seas. First, I'll visit a new and improved port in the Bahamas and take in more onboard dining and entertainment during these last sea days as I wrap up my first solo cruise. Good morning from day 5 here on Oasis of the Seas. We are now in Nassau, Bahamas, and as you can see behind me, we're not alone. That's the Carnival Dream over there. Just one other ship in port from what I can tell right now. Anyway, gonna get myself ready and we're gonna go check out the new and improved port of Nassau. Sometimes it's not until you're off the ship that you're reminded just how big they are. Look at that. The Nassau Cruise Port is the world's 5th largest passenger port. The recent $300 million renovation was designed to accommodate more visitors and enhance their overall experience. The extended pier allows docking for large cruise ships like Oasis, but also the new Icon class. As you enter the port area from the cruise piers, there is an entrance to the street, so you can head right out from here if you're leaving the port itself. As you make your way through the new port area, you will see plenty of the new shops and amenities, including the new terminal building and the new junkanoo museum, which showcases Bahamian culture and heritage. As you make your way toward the opposite end, there's so many new shops to check out, and you'll note that there's been lots of landscaping, so it really improves the port's overall appearance. There's still some construction going on, and many of the shops are not quite open yet. Down this opposite end, you'll see the new amphitheater. I do not know what types of events are planned for here, so if you know, please leave a comment letting us know. Also down this end, there's another exit to the street where you'll be at the popular straw market, and just a bit further down is Senior Frogs. Well, that'll do it for me here in Nassau. Going to get back on board, find some AC. I think it's time for the pool. Well, that was a nice relaxing afternoon doing absolutely nothing but enjoying the sun. Once again, we have departed and we are now heading back north to Bayonne. So the weather perhaps is not going to stay quite as nice as we head north. Latest is we will be essentially following Hurricane Lee up the east coast, and it's not too clear yet if we'll be experiencing too much as a result of that. More to come, I guess, on the next update. But for now, ready for tonight's evening. Need to get something to eat. I'm not sure what I'm doing yet. And then there's a few planned activities for tonight, so come along. I decided to check out Playmakers, which is the onboard sports bar. Here's a look at the food and drink menu, and as an extra pay option, the food was pretty good. I ordered way too much, and the cost was pretty reasonable. On this sailing, the cancellation of the Aqua 80s show is very much a thing due to the high seas. But if you're on the boardwalk at the right time, you can at least check out the performers training for the show. Little stroll through Central Park on my way to the comedy club. A little bit of motion in the ocean tonight. Once I took in the comedy show, I headed up to the pool deck, and consistent with the motion being felt, it's now quite noticeable in the pools that the sea continues to be affected by Hurricane Lee. Well, that'll do it for day 5 here on Oasis of the Seas. Overall, a great day. A little bit of time in Nassau, Bahamas. Had dinner at Playmakers, which was pretty good. It is an upcharge restaurant, but it's an a la carte, so overall not too expensive compared to some of the other specialty dining on board. Then I headed off to the stand-up comedians in Blaze, which is the dance club / comedy club on board. They were good, perhaps a bit dated in their material, but it's subjective. And then it was time for The Quest, held in Studio B. The Quest is essentially an adult scavenger hunt. Nobody under 18 allowed. If you're into that kind of thing, definitely check it out if it's being offered on your sailing on Royal Caribbean. And now we are headed north back toward Bayonne, following Hurricane Lee, of course. And yes, tonight we are feeling more of the motion of the ocean than we have all cruise so far. So I suspect that's likely to continue until we get back to Bayonne, but we'll see. We have 2 full sea days ahead, so lots to check out here on Oasis of the Seas over the next 2 days. Hello from day 6 here on Oasis of the Seas. This is the first of 2 sea days in which we're heading back from the Bahamas back to Bayonne, New Jersey, and we are on the tail of Hurricane Lee. The last update that we've received is essentially we are following Hurricane Lee, who is quite a bit further north than us, so we're kind of just trailing along. What's resulted from that? Well, it's about 15-foot swells out there today as we follow behind Hurricane Lee. The ship definitely has some movement today compared to a few days ago when it was 4 and 5 foot swells, so we've essentially tripled where we were a couple of days ago. The ship is definitely moving about. When we come down off of some of these swells, there's definitely a bit of a crashing sound down in the front, a bit of a shuddering of the ship. I'm on the 10th deck, so I'm up quite a bit. When you are up high, you do sometimes feel more of that movement, and I'm toward the forward of the ship as well. But I'll just let the captain tell you.
We have sailed now 1,530 nautical miles on our journey here, and we have a little bit more to go to come back up. Depth under the keel is about 13,000 feet where we're sailing right now. We have northerly winds of a moderate force, and we have about 15 feet of swell, mainly coming from the Hurricane Lee that is ahead of us now. So we are following in her trail coming back up. Temperature is 82 degrees Fahrenheit. For tonight it will clear up even more, and we will have still northerly wind and about the same sea state, about 15-16 feet of sea.
So with that said, it looks like we'll be arriving back on time in Bayonne. So in terms of us being on Oasis of the Seas, at sea with Hurricane Lee, all is good. Let's see what Oasis of the Seas brings us for these last 2 sea days. For items like medications and toiletries, there is a vending machine shop called Unbox where you can use your SeaPass card to make a purchase. It's always advisable to bring whatever items you think you might need with you, as they are expensive on board, but it's here if you need it. The deck plans on Royal Caribbean don't show this location, but it's located near the arcade on deck 15. It's a beautiful day, but when you look out at that ocean, you can certainly see that it's not as calm as it was earlier in the sailing. Just checking in here. I'm just in my cabin. It's day 6 here on Oasis of the Seas on my first solo cruise. So I thought it was about time I check in and let you know what it's been like taking my first solo cruise. Pros, cons, observations, and things that are yet to be determined. To be quite honest, it took me about 2-3 days to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing solo on one of the world's largest cruise ships. And what I finally figured out is I can be doing whatever I want because it's just me. So that's been one of the biggest adjustments to sailing solo for the first time, is there's just me to schedule, there's just me to plan my day, there's just me to do whatever I want. Now, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? I guess it depends on the type of cruise you're looking to take. So for me, one of the pros has been just that ability to do what I want when I want and not have to coordinate schedules with anyone during the course of a day. So for me, that meant a little more sleeping in than I usually do, and really not being too concerned with squeezing a lot in. I just take in the things that I really want to take in. And on a cruise ship like this, there's typically lots going on. So instead of running from event to event to event, trying to squeeze it all in, I was very selective in what I took in on any given day. So that would be the biggest pro or biggest advantage that I've experienced during this solo cruise so far. If I had to pick one con in terms of my first solo experience, it is figuring out the dining. The dining has been kind of hit and miss in terms of the dining experience. Mind you, all the food has been wonderful. I have eaten in the main dining room once. I've eaten at 3 extra pay restaurants, the first being Chop's Grill, so a full sit-down meal there. And then I ate at the Portside Barbecue. Now those are much more casual dining experiences, so not an unusual or uncomfortable environment to eat solo, but eating at Chop's Grill, if you're someone who's not used to going out to a nice restaurant by yourself, it can be a little bit intimidating, but the servers and everyone there made me feel very welcome, and it was not a problem. For the main dining room this week, I was on my time dining, so I did not have a set table and server. I've only been there once so far, and they were able to squeeze me in during an early dining time that I tried to get in on. And again, the service was great. The service staff made me feel very welcome. There were no issues, there was no questions, there was no concerns. I'm sure they see people dining solo all the time. But still, if you're not used to dining solo in those types of environments, then perhaps that's just something to keep in mind. But for me, it did not take away from the dining experience itself. Now, what about the social component? Now, here in Oasis of the Seas, there are over 6,000 passengers on board, so one would think it would not be difficult to meet people. That may be true in some situations, but you have to keep in mind that because the ship is so big and there are so many people, the chances of meeting someone, having a good chat, getting along, and then thinking that perhaps you're going to run into them again, well, you may never see them again. This is essentially a small floating town or city, so the chances of running into them randomly at a location around the ship actually may not occur. So one of the good things on the Royal Caribbean app is that there's now the option to message with other passengers. So if you're traveling solo and you meet some people or someone that you've been chatting with, and perhaps there's some events or whatnot that you want to attend together, or some shared excursions, etc., that you want to coordinate and go together. Perhaps you've met another solo traveler, for example. So as long as you have the sharing option of the messaging feature within the app activated, if you provide the person with your name, they can find you or you can find them, and you can chat back and forth. So that's a great way to kind of expand that social component. But you need to do it pretty early because, again, you may not run into them just casually again on the ship. So that's a good option to keep in mind if you're looking to expand your onboard social circle. Now, if you're the opposite and you just want to fade into the background and do your own thing and stay as solo as possible, this is probably one of the best ships to do it on. It's a big ship, there's lots going on, there's lots of people, and quite frankly, no one cares what you're doing. They're not paying attention to you. Everyone's in their own vacation bubble, so you can really just do what you want and stay off the radar. So that's my biggest pro, con, and general observations so far for my first solo cruise, that being here on Oasis of the Seas. But I'll be back to give you a full rundown of all the advantages, disadvantages, pros, cons, observations for things you should keep in mind if you're thinking of taking your first solo cruise. Now, if you've cruised solo, perhaps you've cruised solo several times, unlike myself, who's just doing his first one, and you have tips and tricks regarding how to make the most out of your solo cruise, please leave those tips and tricks in the comments below. I would love to compile those, and perhaps when I do my follow-up, I'll be able to include those and take advantage of them myself on my next solo cruise. But will I go on another solo cruise? Well, let's finish this one, and I'll let you know in the next video all of my thoughts and whether I would do it again. In the meantime, please hit the notification bell so you can check out our next videos, and it would be appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel so we can keep bringing them to you. Thank you in advance for that. There's our current position as we continue to head north. Now back to the main dining room for Royal Night, aka Lobster Night. Alright, after a nice relaxing afternoon, I headed down to the main dining room for Lobster Night. Food was great, service was fast, no complaints there. And now off to see tonight's production show of Cats. Now admittedly, I am not a big fan of cats, or at least I haven't been, so we'll see if tonight changes my mind. So here we go, off to Cats. The ship is definitely rocking a bit tonight with us trailing behind Hurricane Lee. Alright, that'll do it for day 6 here on Oasis of the Seas. Overall, a great evening. Went to the production show of Cats, the musical. It was good, the performers were good. The show itself, well, it's subjective, but overall it was good. Then it was off to the Schooner Bar and the music hall, checking out a few of the musical acts. So, it was another good evening. Tomorrow was our last sea day, with a few things on the agenda, but most importantly, another day to relax here at sea, because the weather is supposed to remain very good and the seas are supposed to be much calmer, so it should be a perfect final day of this cruise, but I guess we'll know for sure tomorrow. Well, hello from day 7 here on Oasis of the Seas, and we are still trailing behind Hurricane Lee. Quick recap on last night. Let's just say this ship was a-movin'. Nothing to the point that it was causing any great concern, but let's just say the seasickness bags are all hung out in the ship for those that may need them, and yeah, it was a lot of movement. We had an update from the captain today explaining that we were at about 17-foot swells this morning, possibly a bit more overnight. At least it felt like it, because today seems a little bit less intense than last night, but overall, lots of motion, but no real concerns. This morning, I got up and headed for a massage down in the spa, and let me just say, oh, we're still rocking. That it was relaxing, but the spa is right at the front of the ship, deck 5. So where the ship is cutting through these swells, well, it is loud. Here's what it sounded like in the spa. The masseuse was great, but she certainly had a challenge keeping her balance throughout the visit. In terms of activities on the ship, everything is operating as per usual. However, the pools are now all closed. Here's what they look like today. So all in all, it's still a beautiful day. The sun is shining, the temperatures are good. It's starting to cool down just a little bit since we left the Caribbean, but that's to be expected as we head a little bit north here. According to the captain, the swells that are currently at about 17 feet will come down to about 10 as we approach the evening. So we'll see how that goes, because tonight is the rescheduled performance of Aqua 80 in the Aqua Theater that was rescheduled from the other night when there was too much movement with the ship. I'm not too optimistic that that show will proceed tonight, given that we have higher swells now than we did the previous night, but we'll see. But also tonight is Giovanni's Table, the Italian restaurant. I'm heading there at 6 p.m. So Giovanni's, Aqua 80, if it goes ahead, and then that'll wrap up the final night here on Oasis of the Seas. And this wraps up my first solo cruise. So I'll have a full review of my experience as a first-time solo cruiser coming to a video soon, so make sure you subscribe so you can catch that at a later date. But for now, I'm going to get my packing started because I don't want to be spending my time doing that on my last evening. I'm doing the self-assist tomorrow, so I can exit the ship at my discretion anytime between 6 and 8:30 a.m. Let's continue on with this last day here on Oasis of the Seas. And there's our current position as we continue to head north. Okay, packing is underway, but next up, Giovanni's Table here at Central Park. Okay, 40 minutes in and out of Giovanni's Table. I guess this is the thing with dining solo. There's nothing to do but eat, so it happens very quickly. They served everything fast, and then I'm in and out. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that, but anyway, the food at Giovanni's was delicious, except for the espresso I had at the end with my dessert. Yeah, he didn't charge me for it, but I guess it's because he pulled it right out of the damn swamp. Anyway, overall, the food was delicious, serving sizes were great, and yeah, no complaints whatsoever. It is looking much calmer out there this evening. A few plans tonight. I'm going to finish packing first, and then it is the Aqua 80 show. If it continues, there's still some movement with the ship, so we'll see how that goes. If not, there's the adult comedy show and a few other things going on around the ship. No lack of things to do for the last evening. So I'm going to get that done and get this evening going. I had a little beverage on the Rising Tide bar, which goes up and down between the promenade and Central Park. Well, that'll do it for the last evening here on Oasis of the Seas. Ended up checking out the stand-up comedians in the main theater. That was the main show going on tonight. Didn't take in the Aqua 80 show. Not even sure if it continued with the movement on the ship, so didn't chance it and went to the comedy show instead. And then just spent the evening kind of checking out a few of the last bars with music and drinks and saying goodbyes to some wonderful people that I met on this cruise. Always a great part of cruising, meeting some great people along the way. I have to get up very early for Disembarkation tomorrow. So for now, thank you for coming along with me here on Oasis of the Seas. Thank you for those who have been watching and leaving comments so far. There's apparently lots of interest in the solo cruising space, so I'll bring more on my pros, cons, takeaways from my solo experience here on Oasis of the Seas coming soon, so be sure to hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you soon. Alright, always the saddest part of the cruise, exiting the gangway. Our cruise and travel schedule for 2024 is coming together with some exciting destinations and announcements on the way, so please subscribe and join us as we continue to explore. In the meantime, watch one of these videos.